Before Thursday's question period, Damian Curick officially resigned, giving his farewell speech.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and it is an honor to rise in my place and deliver what will be my farewell speech in this Parliament. Now, Mr. Speaker, for now, as I offer my seat, I will, at the earliest opportunity, resign my seat to trigger a by-election.
This is obviously huge because this allows Pierre to potentially come back to the House of Commons. So a massive thank you to Damian Curick. We have the Premier of Manitoba here doing a press conference with reporters based on the wildfires that are spreading, and he absolutely shreds this reporter.
Site are presumably starting a fire on their site.
What proof do you have that Alamos is connected to the start of the fire?
Yeah, but all the residents say it started at the mine site.
So what proof do you have?
I guess we're waiting on the investigation still, but generally, could you repeat what you just said to for my colleagues in English about your message to Lynn Lake residents?
You know, I used to be a daily news reporter, so I say this with the utmost of understanding for the pressures that everybody in this room deals with, but I really do think that responsible reporting is very important right now. Journalistic standards and practices book, and just making sure that you're not reporting hearsay and that stuff is double sourced before it's getting shared with the public, I think is very, very important. Not to say that that's a specific commentary on this, but just across the board. We've got a very specific message out here today. Flin Flon, a large community in the north, is on the verge of evacuation, and we're asking for people to listen to the message. We're asking for people to get ready, and we're asking Manitobans in other parts of the province to open your doors if the emergency officials come calling.
She tried to sit there and say exactly how the fire started, and then not even 2 seconds later said, we're still waiting for the investigation. My God, you can't hate the mainstream media enough. And on top of that, a Prescott, Ontario man has pled guilty to uttering death threats aimed at Conservative MP. A Prescott, Ontario man has been banned from owning firearms and other weapons for 3 years and sentenced to 1 year probation after pleading guilty to one charge of uttering death threats, which were aimed at Ontario Conservative MP Michael Barrett. He initially faced 2 counts of uttering death threats dating back to July 18th, 2024. One threat was aimed at Barrett, who serves as his party's ethics critic, and another aimed at Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Court documents show the second charge involving the threats against Poilievre's life was withdrawn. Barrett said that the threat against his life was made by McKay in a statement to police while they investigated threats made online against Poilievre. So some crazy news coming out here. Not entirely sure exactly why said individual uttered these threats in the first place. All I know is I'm glad it's been dealt with, and hopefully it does not continue further. The MP of Bow River had this to say about Alberta separatism.
Alberta separatism is no longer a fringe idea. I heard it at the doors more times than I can count, and I'll tell you plainly, Alberta staying in Confederation is not up to me, and it's not up to the Liberal government. It's up to the people of Alberta, and the Albertans know that they have options. If this House continues to insult, abuse, and neglect Alberta, if it refuses to treat our people and our industries with the respect that they've earned, then the future of this country is not guaranteed.
Well, based on what we're seeing right now, I don't think anything is guaranteed. During the Trudeau government, nothing was guaranteed, and a large majority of those ministers are still hanging around. On top of that, the Canada-US tariffs, the Liberation Day tariffs were dropped, and then
idea that the fentanyl crisis in America is not an emergency is so appalling to me that I'm sure that when we appeal, that this decision will be overturned. If there are little hiccups here or there because of decisions that activist judges make, then it shouldn't just concern you at all. And it's certainly not going to affect the negotiations because in the end, people know President Trump is 100% serious. And they also have seen that President Trump always wins.
So the tariffs were blocked. And then, just as quickly as they were blocked, they were reinstated. It would appear we are in talks right now to potentially get the lowest possible tariff applied.
When I spoke to the U.S. ambassador, the newly minted U.S. ambassador last week, he indicated he didn't think there was any way it'd be no tariffs, but we might get the lowest tariff regime of any of the deals the U.S. makes. Should that be acceptable to us?
Look, I think that we should forge ahead with an agreement as quickly as possible. I hate to disagree with Derek Burney, but this international tribunal, the Court of International Trade, that found the 3 judges that found that they didn't believe there was a connection between using the emergency powers of the president to impose tariffs and the emergencies of fentanyl and immigration. They don't see the connection there. We all knew that. We get it. But now the pause lasted no more than 24 hours and tariffs are back on until at least they figure this out at the administrative level and at the court legal level. But remember, the president has other means to enact tariffs. He's still using Section 232, which is on aluminum and steel, and that hurts us. We need to get to the table and negotiate those tariffs away. And also on auto parts, we need to get to the table. That affects jobs in Ontario. We need to get to the table and continue to negotiate on that. But there's also something called Section 122 and Section 338, and this is all really boring. But he can use Section 122 and 230 and 338 to impose tariffs. He can, if this doesn't work out in the courts for him, he can just move. So insiders in Washington say to me, the courts might win the skirmishes, but Trump's going to win the battle and the war on tariffs. So we know there's going to be a tariff. And of course, we want to get to an agreement where there is no tariffs within the USMC and it's fully, truly a free trade agreement.
We need to come to an agreement ASAP. That way we can focus on things here. Feels like a lot of MPs right now are using Trump as this boogeyman or scapegoat to shift blame from the past 10 years. No, the tariffs aren't helping, but the tariffs aren't the reason we are in this position. Trump saw a weak Canada and has taken full advantage. It's just that simple. I want to know what you think down in the comment section below. Hit that like button, hit that sub button if you're new, and thank you very much for watching.